Happy Friday, everyone. It is Penny and Kim, and we are lighting up your Fridays with the 5 stars of strengthening families. And we are continuing our discussion on resilience. And today we are going to be checking in to see how it went last week. So I'm going to let Penny do that.
So last week at the end, last week we talked about Oh, yeah. Sorry, people. It's Friday. How do you give your children space to be who they are? So when is that difficult for you? And why might that be difficult? So then at the end, we had asked you to do a small thing. We had invited you, challenged you to take an opportunity to maybe notice when that was happening for you and to breathe and just allow some space. So whether that was when your child was expressing some really big, hard feelings to you, or when you were feeling particularly afraid about them trying something or being away in the world, supporting yourself through that, breathing through that, and when it was safe to do so, allowing them to be who they are. Again.
And I was just going to say, that's not always as easy as it looks. It's easier said than done. So, and it really takes, I think, kind of going within, and like you say, breathing helps, and staying in the present moment, because when we're in fear, we're not in the present moment. And so it really takes just that breathing kind of brings us back to that. So that's a big piece. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because for me, I know that's a big piece.
Well, and it's instinctual, right? So that's one of the challenges around recognizing and being aware of fear, is that it's, especially when our children are concerned, is it's so instinctual. That's part of our brain that reacts without us being aware. So to be able to notice body sensations, does your temperature rise, does your heart rate increase? Those are the tiny steps to recognizing what's going on. Because it's not like you're consciously going, oh, I'm really afraid that. I mean, sometimes you might be saying, my God, that kid's going to break his neck. But, the situations that maybe aren't that obvious. So why is that coming up?
And I think sometimes it's important. Oh, sorry, bit of feedback there. I think it's important, like you say, it happens so quickly that we don't even realize it. That's why it's almost in retrospect, we almost have to do our homework there and thinking, why did that? And sort of dive into it in that space, and working from memory when the emotions are lower, when we can actually, because I think if we miss that piece, then we're just going to tend to do the exact same the next time, every time. It actually takes a little bit of work in order to change that, so that the next time we have a different reaction. Change that pathway in our brain, so that the next time it happens, we have a different reaction.
No, that's a good point, because lots of times when you're in it, you won't notice it. But thinking back, right, you could notice, well, hey, I really noticed that my face got flushed and I started to sweat. Oh, okay, so that's a physical symptom I can be aware of. Or I noticed that my thoughts started to race, or that my voice rose. Or yeah, that's a great idea, to sort of look back. And
because it changes then how we react the next time. Because like you said, it just happens so instinctual. It happens, we don't even realize it's happening. And when you can't really look at it in that moment, you can't actually. So that's why it's important to do it afterwards in the memory. And the same goes for our kids.
Yeah. Well, that brings us beautifully into today, where we're going to talk about why we might want to avoid taking things personally. So this applies not only to your children, but to all of your relationships and how you are in the world. So what could be some benefit to learning to take things less personally, or try to avoid taking things personally? Kim?
Well, I think when we take things personally, we're not able to react in the way that we may need to, or want to, or even know how to, because we're sort of, our system is sort of on override, right? Like you explained earlier. So when we take things personally, we're not able to sort of have that clear thinking, and it just kind of gets in the way because, you know, we're, like I said, we're on override. Lost my train of thought there where I was going with that, but we just can't be or parent the way we want to or know to in those moments. When we understand that this is not a personal attack, this has got something to do with their immaturity or their own personal growth, then we can gain some insight. And because I think that's the critical piece here, I think, is we all know we shouldn't take it personally, but the big question is, how do we not? And I think the answer comes in insight. Once we understand this isn't just them pushing our buttons, this is happening for some other reason. And that gives us the understanding, which then changes our immediate reaction, because it's no longer a personal attack. That makes sense?
Yeah, so I'm just going to clarify. So I think what you're saying is, first of all, when we're triggered, which happens often when we take things personally, our own ability to reason is diminished, and our own ability to regulate our own feelings is very diminished. And that
hijacked.
Yeah, hijacked. So then it's nearly impossible to parent in a conscious, positive way, because we're relying strictly on instincts. And instincts served us once upon a time.
Yeah.
They no longer most of the time, you know, do serve us in the way that they once did. So that instinct to fight or run away or freeze was when you had to worry about tigers.
Yeah.
Not so much tigers these days. However, our brains can always say, well, that's a tantrum, not a tiger.
Yeah.
Brain,
yeah.
This is not an emergency. It's okay. So what was once built to protect us, yeah. So I think that's what you're saying, that you can't regulate how.
Can hijack our emotions.
Right.
Yeah.
And then at the end, sorry.
Yeah.
We're a pair, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're the real deal.
We're the real deal. So, I know. Then you said the real core of things is, okay, then how do we do that?
Yes.
Yes. So when I look at this question, I think for that same reason, why would I want to avoid it? Is so that I can operate at my full capacity, that I can access my thinking part of my brain, that my emotions aren't flooding me and I'm not acting purely on instinct. That's why I would want to avoid it. And I want to teach that to my children, right? That we aren't responsible for other people's feelings. You don't make people feel a certain way. You act in certain ways and people will have reactions to that. And that's, you're responsible for your own behavior. You're not responsible for people's emotions about your behavior. So those would be reasons why. Yeah, I want to be able to do my best, and I can't do my best when I'm triggered. So I'm going to put the question back to you. How? How do we avoid taking things personally? What are some strategies or skills you might be able to offer up in this area, Kim?
First one that comes to mind is understanding. Having an understanding and insight, right, about where that's coming from for the child. And the other one is goes back to self-care. Because if I have not been taking time for myself, and there's lots of stresses, which there are always, then I'm not able to do that as easily. My level of tolerance is lower, and it'll be my knee-jerk reaction to take it personally. I know when I'm tired, when I'm hungry, when I'm stressed, I take things a lot more personally than I do when I'm sort of at my, best. And how do you be at your best when you're stressed? Well, you carve out that time and take that time for yourself, and you do it anyways. So I think for me, the two things are realizing insight and understanding of that our children aren't just pushing our buttons. There is especially if it's coming from a behavioral perspective, behind every behavior is a need, or they're communicating something. So what is it that they're communicating? And then realizing, have I been taking care of myself enough so that my level of tolerance is is where it needs to be in order to handle this situation. How about you?
Yeah, that's so true about your own capacity, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's parents, it's all about caregivers, it's all about you.
Yeah.
So spend that time for yourself. We can't stress that enough.
It's not a selfish thing to do, and maybe it is, but you know what? If it is, own it. That is a necessary thing to be. We got to be a little bit selfish. How about that?
Yeah, and remove the negative connotation around selfish,
yes.
right? That
yes.
Doing for myself is important.
Yes.
So a couple of things. Yeah, I missed that originally, the insight and understanding. So that's where that component of strong families of knowledge comes in, right? So when you know that it's developmentally appropriate, it makes it easier to say, oh yeah, exactly. He's not trying to push my buttons, or she's not acting out. It's totally normal that she's melting down because she wants the blue cup, not the yellow cup.
And if we don't realize it, if we don't realize it until after it's happened, like I said, working from a place of memory, then we can just say, you know what, we really lost it there. Next time we'll do better. Next time, I lost it there and I'm sorry. It's a great way to model giving an apology, by the way.
This is it, right? There's so many learning opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that came up for me was the word detective. So when I work with families, this is a word I use often because, like you said, there's something behind the behavior. And why do we want to avoid taking things personally? So when we change our perspectives from the wounded party to the detective, so instead of, why are you doing this to me? Why is this happening? Right? Why? So you're not giving me trouble, you're having trouble. Let's be detectives. Let's figure that out. And just a simple shift from giving trouble to having trouble often is really helpful for parents and caregivers to understand that either A, it's a developmentally not possible, or there's some kind of stress going on, or there's a skill that they haven't built yet. Those are areas where it's really important for parents to be realistic with their expectations, because you just get everybody in trouble if you think that, your 3-year-old can reason through something complex. They can't do that. And when you expect that they can, it does feel personal, because it feels like they're intentionally withholding something from you that they can do, except that they can't do it. And so if you think about that, it'd be like, okay, I can play for the NBA and you're mad at me because I'm not, or, it's just not possible. So those ideas of looking for clues and answers and exploring and detecting what's going on, and kind of just moving from like I said, from the wounded I can't believe this is happening to me. And self-talk is really important in that area. So if you're feeling really triggered, one of my favorite things is telling myself, and I have to do it out loud, this is not an emergency. Because over years of practice, I've learned to start to recognize when I'm feeling afraid.
Yeah.
And it's usually because my environment is really busy and loud and I don't do well with that. So with 4 people in a small space, talking and being normal human beings, I can feel that. So reminding myself, hey, instinctual brain, it's not an emergency. It's not an emergency. I don't have to. And the other thing is clarity for me. So seeking that clarity, which probably with a 3-year-old, you're not going to be able to do, but you can do this with your other relationships, is if my partner says, oh my gosh, the floors are filthy. Oh, I can't believe the floors are so filthy. And as we've established in earlier episodes, so I can then either be offended and take that personally, as in he's saying, I don't vacuum enough.
Yeah.
Or I can simply ask or say, yeah, the floors are dirty. Were you wanting me to vacuum? And most of the time, it's just venting. It's just that he likes a clean space. And with 4 people and a dog, our floors are clean when he cleans them.
Yeah.
Which he does because I don't. So that idea of just taking it from him saying that I am not a good housekeeper, I'm not doing enough, all those things, the crazy train, right? You can go down that, or you can just say, oh, yeah, you don't like it when they're like that. Or was there a request in there? Or you're just, so I'll say that to my kids. Is there a request in there? Or is this just, Sarah's mom always makes us brownies. Oh, is there a request in there? And they'll either be like, yeah, can you make us brownies? Or they'll be like, no, she just makes really good brownies.
Yeah.
But just that little bit of clarification that I have to remind myself to stop. And I don't know, 40, 60 maybe right now, but I'm really trying to practice it in my adult relationships because my brain works, and all of our brains, like they make these connections like so quickly that you can find yourself on the train out of the station halfway to New York before you kind of can go, whoa, what's going on here? He just said that the floor is dirty.
And I think the whoa, what's going on here is the piece that needs to happen that we don't often even realize that we need to do. I love that you said that it's not, they're not doing this to me. They're not, how did you say that? They're not doing this to me. They're not giving me a problem. Trouble. They're not giving me trouble. They're having trouble. Wow. That's profound. That right there, if we can even write that up somewhere and, stick it somewhere that we can see it. Because that is a huge piece that right there will shift your perspective. And all it takes is just to stop and able to look in the other direction. There you go. Change your spectacles. Perspectacles. Yeah. Love it.
I don't know who I got that one from, but it stuck with me for years. And it's kind of funny because then you can kind of make a joke out of it, right? Because laughter and lightening things up can be like, holy smokes, I just went off the rails with my thinking. And I snapped at you because, man, that train was just going so fast that it just took off down the ravine.
Yeah, train wreck. The lightening it up does, because it does feel heavy, right? So yeah, there's some little great tidbits today.
I think, and like you said, and then you can say, whoa, yeah, that happened to me. Or, Brene Brown, the story I'm making up in my head is that you think I'm a lousy housekeeper. Mm-hmm. So many great ideas about what we think people are saying and how fast our brains make those connections based upon years of our own experiences and trauma in our, you know, it's just huge.
That's right.
So all you can do now, self-compassion, awareness, like you said, after the fact, go, okay, what did happen there?
Yeah.
How did I go from pleasant conversation on the phone to slamming it down because my mother said something about something, right?
I took it personally. Yeah. So, because those things could be said. People could say them, and they're not appropriate. That wasn't nice. But if it only goes in if we're taking it personally, for being triggered by that, right? So, and then it changes how our reaction, especially in parenting, it changes our reaction to how we respond to our child who's clearly in need. If they're having a meltdown, they're not doing it to us. They're not creating the problem or to us. They're having a problem. So if we take it personally, we can't react or respond as best as we could otherwise.
Yeah. And I think, like you said earlier, you know, the taking care of yourself and what I said about the self-talk, because I do believe that we take things the most personally when we buy into what the person is saying, what we think they're saying. So if I already have something going on in my head that says I'm a lousy housekeeper, or I'm not enough, or I'm not good enough the way I am, self-esteem things, when my spouse makes a comment about something, that's where my brain goes. So my own self-talk on a daily basis of, I am enough. Yeah, I don't vacuum, and that's okay. I wasn't put on the earth to vacuum only.
I love, and that's why my stairs didn't get vacuumed this week. I love the I am enough. I am enough. That's what I'm taking away from this week, and I hope others do as well. I think it's a huge piece, and it's simple, and you can tell yourself that when those negative thoughts are running through there, you can just try to stop them and say, I am enough. Write that, have that written up somewhere on your fridge or your mirror.
So that's your homework.
That's good homework.
Remind yourself on a daily, hourly, however much it takes basis that you are enough. And so this brings to close our 4 weeks on the Resilience Star. So next week, we are going to start off with talking about relationships, social connections, and how learning about that can help strengthen your families.
Yep, you bet. Looking forward to it.
Thanks for joining us. Hope the sun shines on you this weekend. Take care, everyone.
Have a great weekend. Yeah. Bye.